Ooh, wee! This is a good one, guys. This is a good one. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
First off, this is another opportunity to enter the 8K giveaway. When we hit 8K, I'm going to pick a random video between now, a couple videos ago, and when we hit 8K, pick a random comment from that video, check that that person is subscribed, and they will be the winner of this awesome set of books: Berserker #1, third print, foil, CGC 9.8, Infamous Iron Man #1, Invincible Iron Man #1, The Recount #1, the Ben Templesmith exclusive cover, and Nice House on the Lake #1 cover B. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video. So this video is the first in a weekly installment of videos in collaboration with Key Collector Comics and a new category on the Key Collector app called Bry's Comics Presents. We may change the name, but I think it's going to be Bry's Comics Presents. And if you don't already have Key Collector app, if you go download it, use code Bry's Comics or Comic Tom and get a free 2-week trial of the full version of the app. I don't really care what code you use. Either one of those codes will give you a free 2-week trial. I'm not really interested in the commissions from people using that code. What I am interested in is you downloading that app if you don't already have it, because it will make you a wiser collector, a better comic book investor, and just a more well-rounded, knowledgeable member of the community. And the more knowledgeable the comic book community is, the better. And I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you either already have the app or have already heard of it. But if you haven't, it is an incredible resource for comic book collecting, investment, speculation, and just collecting. Even if you aren't into the investment and speculation side of it, there are categories on this app that present collections of books in ways that you would have never found otherwise. And so it's a very valuable resource no matter what your angle is with comics. But if you are an investor and a speculator, it is an absolute necessity that you have this app. It's only $1.99 for the paid version, and it's very important that you get the paid version because you get key notifications and push alerts that give you first access to breaking news and information that's incredibly important to the comic book speculation market. And if you can afford a single comic book a month, this is half the price of a single comic book. It's an incredible value. And again, it just collects and presents all the information all right there in one place in a really digestible, easy to read way. I'll just say that my business would not be where it is today. I probably would not have been able to quit my job and do comics full time if I didn't have this resource. Download the app, use code Bry's Comics or Comic Tom. Either one will get you a free 2-week trial of the app. All right, so in this video, we have a character spotlight of an incredibly undervalued MCU character in the Black Knight. And first, we're going to talk about what we know about the Black Knight in the MCU. Then we'll talk about his history in the comics, because I think that can shed some light on where they might take him in the MCU. And then we'll jump into the keys that I think are still worth picking up. So Kit Harington has been cast as Dane Whitman version of the Black Knight in the MCU, and he will make his debut in the Eternals movie, which is set to be released this November 5th, 2021, less than 2 months away. And we saw some hype from the trailers and the promotions for the Eternals right when this came out and right when Kit Harington was cast, but it has died down quite a bit since then, and it coincided with the market correction, and I think we may have a very rare opportunity right now to get in on these keys right before they pop, which is always a major bonus with comic book speculation when you can get a quick turnaround time, because sometimes specs take years to come to fruition, but I don't think that's the case here. This is a rare situation where the trailer might not be the best time to sell, that the excitement about this character might not be fully realized until after the movie comes out. So it's likely that we'll see a boost right when the movie comes out, but it's also likely to just be the start of the Black Knight's role in the MCU. So it could make a good long-term hold as well. And Kit Harington obviously is most well known for his role as Jon Snow in the Game of Thrones, and I think he's a major win for the MCU. He's a rare actor that appeals to a wide range of audiences. I don't mind seeing him swinging a sword, kicking ass on screen, and my wife certainly doesn't mind seeing him on screen. And my son, for that matter, can probably really get behind the Black Knight, so he appeals to a huge range and wide audience. But it is a fine line, though. If I get just one flick of the hair of Kit Harington, I'm out. Marvel, no flicks of the hair, okay? Of all the castings for Marvel Phase 4, Kit Harington has the most long-term potential. Actors like Russell Crowe and Christian Bale aren't likely to continue in the MCU, and he also has attributes of characters like Thor, Steve Rogers, and Iron Man. Thor and Steve Rogers because of the worthiness aspect, wielding the ebony blade, and Iron Man because of the genius mastermind / wealthy benefactor aspects of his character. So this character has a ton of potential in the MCU, especially since we are seeing that void with Steve Rogers and Iron Man at this time. It's a very interesting time to introduce a character like the Black Knight. And one of the things that I've noticed about the marketing and promotions for the Eternals movie is that there's very little mention of Kit Harington. I mean, his name is on things, but we don't see a whole lot of him. So why would that be? It could be classic Marvel misdirection, keeping all the fans guessing. It could also be that he doesn't have that big of a role in this Eternals movie, that they're just using this movie to set him up in the MCU. But why would you cast a major actor like Kit Harington just to keep him on the sidelines? Kevin Feige does go on record to say that his role in the Eternals could grow into something more. Personally, I think this is classic, secretive Marvel misdirection, keeping the fans guessing, and I think he's going to have a huge role in the MCU for Phase 4 and beyond. And it also presents a very unique opportunity from a comic book investment standpoint, because since he's not being promoted and overly leaned upon in these promotions, the books haven't seen that much of an increase, and I think still have room to grow. At this point, though, all we know is that he will be introduced as Dane Whitman, and that he will likely have a love affair with Cersei, and it might even be a love triangle between Cersei, Icarus, and Dane Whitman. There's a lot of unknowns about the love aspect of his character, but it is rumored that it will be a central theme in the movie and could play a very important role in how the character plays out. All right, so here's some of the things that we know from the trailer so far. The Eternals movie will be linked to other events in the MCU, obviously, as evidenced by the first trailer where Sprite at the dinner table says, "Now that Captain America and Iron Man are gone, who will lead the Avengers?" And Icarus says, "I can lead them," jokingly, and everybody laughs. And I think that two things are evident from this little interaction. One is that it follows after Endgame, and two, it leaves the impression that there will be another leader of the Avengers. The fact that they're drawing attention to Steve Rogers and Iron Man being gone means that they are going to fill that void in some way. And Kit Harington in The Black Knight fits the bill in a lot of ways. I think that little comment from Icarus is classic Marvel misdirection, and that the Black Knight could possibly step up to lead the Avengers, but at the very least, I believe he will join them. And recently, in an interview with Kevin Feige, he was asked about the future of the Avengers, and he commented that there will be questions like, what does it mean to be an Avenger? Who's leading them, and who's financing them? And what's interesting about this to me is the part about who's financing the Avengers, because any number of MCU characters could be cast to lead the Avengers, but only a small portion can actually finance them. And in the comics, Dane Whitman inherits Castle Garrett, so he has the means to finance the Avengers. So I personally think that this is highly likely, but it looks like it's going to take some time for this to take place. Dane Whitman could be a long-term spec in regards to the Avengers, and we might see a whole bunch of stuff happen between now and Avengers 5 that includes the Black Knight. But it's looking like he has a really bright future, regardless of which direction they take. So I think we can expect from the Eternals movie that it will become clear that he has a future in the MCU, and I think that there will be cliffhangers, there'll be a lot of unanswered questions, but I think there will be enough to see spikes in all of these books, and then we will likely see events that play out throughout Phase 4 and beyond that just bolster the importance of the Black Knight as a character. So let's talk about his history in the comics so we can see all the possible directions that Marvel can go with this. He first appeared as Sir Percy in the Black Knight #1 with the Ebony Blade, and then there was an evil version of the Black Knight named Nathan Garrett, Dane Whitman's uncle, but he was quickly killed off, and I don't think Nathan Garrett's Black Knight has very much potential at all as a spec. And then there's the third version of Dane Whitman. So there have been 3 versions of the Black Knight, but the 2 that I think matter the most are the first version from the Golden Age in Sir Percy and the third version in Dane Whitman, which is confirmed for the MCU. The Nathan Garrett version of the Black Knight might play a role if they do like his origin story. If he has some kind of spin-off, they might bring him in, but it'll probably only be for a short stint. And I just don't think that the books associated with him will see huge potential. All right, so here's a list of just some of the characters, the teams, and the storylines that the Black Knight has touched in the comics. I'm not going to go into great detail about each one because it's a very long history in the comic books, but I just want to paint the picture of how vast his history is in the comic books and where they can take this. So he has ties to Magneto and the X-Men. He has ties to Zemo and the Masters of Evil. He has ties to Cersei in the Eternals. He also joins the Avengers. He has ties to Kang the Conqueror and even defeated him in the comics. He met with the Heroes for Hire team, which is rumored for the MCU. He was part of MI-13, the British force who defend against the supernatural. Excalibur with Captain Britain, and his ebony blade is enchanted, so there's potential ties to everything mystical in the MCU, which could play a very major role with the upcoming Doctor Strange stuff. He even had a love interest with the Inhuman Crystal, so he's tied to the Inhumans, and he faced off with Null himself in the recent King in Black arc, amongst other things. Many other things. This isn't entirely uncommon for characters in the Marvel comic universe to make cameos across multiple different storylines, but my point is this, that they can literally go in any direction with Dane Whitman, and they will have some kind of comic book history to back it up. And I don't think that they would introduce him unless they had plans to keep him. So let's talk about the keys. Avengers number 48. This is the first appearance and origin of the Black Knight, Dane Whitman in armor. It's the first appearance of Aragorn, the winged steed. And in my opinion, this is probably the safest bet for Black Knight keys. I do think it's still undervalued. I think we'll see a bump when the movie comes out and beyond. There's more copies of this available. They change hands more frequently. So because of those reasons, I think it's a safer investment. And next up, we have Avengers number 47. This is the first appearance of Dane Whitman in general, right before his first appearance as the Black Knight. I think this is the second safest bet for Black Knight keys, in my opinion, again, because it's from that Avengers run, which is just so popular. This one in particular has Magneto, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver on the cover, so it draws collectors because of that. There's more copies available, so it's just a safer bet. All right, now we have more of a big boy book that has massive potential. We have Black Knight number 1 from Atlas. This is pre-Marvel from 1955, some golden age goodness. And in my opinion, this is the most important Black Knight key because without this, we don't have Nathan Garrett, we don't have Dane Whitman, we don't have Kit Harington. This is the book that started it all. It's just an incredibly important piece of comic book history. And one of my favorite things about this book, it has the Kelpidine candy diet plan on the back cover, which is a candy diet that suggests if you just eat candy that's rich in iodine every time you're hungry, you're guaranteed to lose weight. It's an incredibly awesome ad that's riddled with controversy and just one of these really cool pieces of comic book history. Black Knight number 1 is the first appearance of the Black Knight in Sir Percy. It's the first appearance of the Ebony Blade. It's the first appearance of Mordred and Morgan Le Fay, and the first debut of Excalibur, King Arthur's sword. And it's also incredibly rare. There's only 104 graded copies on the census, the highest graded copy being a CGC 8.5, which hasn't sold since 2008. And then the next highest grade is a 7.0. The most recent sale for a 7.0 was last year in 2020 for $12,000. And since that time in 2020, we've seen market gains across the board anywhere between 100 and 200%. So I think if that 7.0 came back up for sale today, it would easily crush a $20,000 sale because back when it sold in 2020, there was the initial announcements of Kit Harington being cast, but now we have even more reason to believe that he has a long tenure plan for the MCU, and we have all of the market craziness that has gone on to bolster that. So a really high sale in that grade. We'll see trickle down effects for the rest of the grades. Now, here's the thing about Black Knight number 1. if they take Black Knight and make him like a Thor or Steve Rogers level hero in the MCU, which I know is saying a lot, but there's a lot of reason to believe that they could be taking him to this level of a character. Now, imagine if you had a Steve Rogers or Thor or Iron Man key with only 104 copies graded on the census. It's incredibly scarce, so this book has massive potential to see some crazy gains, and it all depends on how big they go with the Black Knight in the MCU. Next up, we have Marvel Superheroes number 17. I absolutely love this cover. It's difficult to get in high grade because of that really dark cover, but this book is the first meeting of the original Black Knight, Sir Percy and Dane Whitman, and this could be very important if Sir Percy and Dane Whitman meet in the MCU. That I could see possibly playing out if he gets his own spin-off or his own movie, if they delve into his origin. But this book is also the origin of the Black Knight and Sir Percy, and it's also the origin of the Ebony Blade and the Ebony Dagger, which is definitely going to play a huge role in the movies. All right, next up we have Avengers 71, and here's another book that I think has massive potential. It's the first official team appearance of the Invaders in Captain America, Human Torch, and Submariner, and the Black Knight joins the Avengers. And this book has massive potential in my opinion because up until this point, it's really only been a desirable key because of the Invaders' significance, except for those diehard Black Knight fans. And the Invaders' significance hasn't really been enough to drive prices to crazy heights. But if Dane Whitman joins the Avengers in the MCU and possibly is the financial backer, possibly leads them, this book will see all new heights, and graded copies in the near mint range have been selling for around $400 to $500. All right, next up we have Black Knight number 1 from 1990, and this is the first solo series featuring the Black Knight, Dane Whitman. It's a 4-issue miniseries from the 90s, and this book saw a peak of over $500 when the trailer for Eternals first released, and has dipped back down to around $250 to $300. And so I think this is a great opportunity to get in on this one. And usually books from the 90s would be more plentiful in direct edition. And the only copies that I've ever seen for this book are newsstand editions. So first of all, don't ever pay a premium for a newsstand edition of this book. And second of all, leave a note in the comments if you have any idea what went on with the distribution model for this book and why they're all newsstand copies in the market. Next up, we have Avengers 350, and this is the relationship of Black Knight and Cersei begins. And this is all but confirmed for the Eternals movie. Historically, significant storyline books like this don't see a rise in price until people see it on screen, which is something that the Pressable Defects has coined as the Agatha effect. And that's why you can still find this book in near mint raw condition for under $10. And if we see a relationship between the Black Knight and Cersei play out on the big screen, if it becomes really important in the storyline, this book will definitely see some bumps in price. Don't forget to head over to Key Collector app and check out the information in the category Bryce Comics Presents. Over there, there's more information, more analysis, more data and stuff to go along with all of this over on the app. Use code Bryce Comics or Comic Tom. Honestly, I don't care what code you use. The important thing is that you download the app. Leave a note down in the comments and it will enter you into my 8K giveaway for all of those awesome books. Thank you so much for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.